Happy Halloween, everyone! I am excited to share with you my October wrap up. So, all the books that I finished this month. I finished 9 months, so it was a pretty good month in terms of the amount of books that I finished. And I didn't finish any terrible ones, to be fair. I just put them down and DNF'd them. So, that's the best part of all of this. And I'm realizing you can't see my costume very well. The little hat, I mean, it's kind of cute. I have to kind of put myself down here. It's too high, but what can I say? I have a head for hats, which means I have a long forehead. So let's get to it. Like, what's a witch without her little cat? Especially the chatty one that is Claudia. That way maybe she will not meow the whole time. So I'm going to go in order of the ones that I finished them. It's just easier. I won't forget any. So the first book I finished in the month of October was The Appeal, which has to be one of the most unique books I have read in a while in terms of the format, because it's all written in emails and text messages, and it's a murder mystery, adult one. And I believe there's a second book. If you have read it, let me know how it went. But you don't even know who is murdered until the halfway point. And there's a bunch of suspects. On the cover it says 15 suspects. So basically you have this theater troops that are putting on a play trying to raise money for the owners. Their grandparents, their granddaughter is diagnosed with a rare form of cancer, so they're trying to get money for her treatment. And it's interesting. My only complaint about it is that I did think it was a little bit long. I didn't skip any portion, and the story, you're following it through these emails, but you're also following these two women who are investigating, and they're just given all this data, as you are, and they eventually get like little summaries between themselves, and I didn't really feel the need to read those portions. I did, but it was a little repetitive because I had made my own conclusions, right, throughout the book. But it was still interesting to see how you build your own opinions about each characters depending on how they're texting and emailing each other. So this was good. I enjoyed it. I think I'm going to give it 3.5. Right after I was done, I think I rounded it up, and I think now I would round it down, but I'm looking forward to trying more books by the author, because I believe all of her books are like similar in terms of like just unique format, and I may have found another copy of her books, which you'll see in my next book haul. So that's the first one I finished. Girl, the deal was if you were in the room, you don't meow. This is her house. I just live in it. Right, girly bop? What are you doing? Come on. There. You happy? You can be on my lap. This is going well. The majority of the books that I finished this month were murder mysteries or thrillers or cozy fantasy. I was just really in the mood. So the second one that I finished was called We Solve Murders, which was written by the same author that wrote the Thursday Murder Club, if you know that one. So it was a little cozy for a murder mystery, less so than the other one though. So you're following these two main characters who are investigators. One of them works with big clients traveling internationally, protecting them. And then the other one is this almost retired man who lives more in a small town. And then the stories kind of converged into each other. And overall enjoyed it. I was hoping to get more emotionally invested, but I listened to it as an audiobook, which I think was perfect for me. I just enjoyed it for what it was, low expectations. And I think I would round it up to a 4-star. It was just good, but I don't feel like it's something that's going to stick with me very much. But again, this month was a struggle in general with my own life, so this was just exactly what I needed. So if you're looking for more like cozy-esque murder mysteries, I think it's the accent, okay? As soon as it's set in the UK, you get the British accent. It just works for me, so it was what it was. Now we get to my best book of the month, which I want to rave about, and it is All the Colors of the Dark, which this is my second book by the author. I had read We Begin at the End by him, and I had enjoyed it, but I had listened to that one as an audiobook, which I feel like reading the ebook was so much better. I will continue to do just that with his books, because his prose is what really got me to love this. This is technically murder, investigation, kind of mystery, but it's more of a character-driven story, very slow burn, which that's like the complaint I have seen from people. Personally, just a 5-star. So like anything that I say negative it's not for me. It's not for me. I love this. So you're following the story of this young boy named Patch. He's missing an eye. He basically thinks of himself as a pirate. And one day he sees the pretty rich girl from the town. There's someone that tries to kidnap her. So he tries to intervene. He gets stabbed, and he's the one that gets kidnapped. So you're seeing him going through this, some flashbacks. hearing about and seeing the consequences on everyone else in town and just how it affects everyone for the whole life. So you're following also his female best friend that was left behind, and I really just got emotionally invested. The writing is what really got to me. Claudia, you cannot eat my microphone. And I know some people have mentioned that, Claudia, come here. And I know some people have mentioned that one, yes, it's very slow burn, in that it seems to center the male character and like there's all the female characters around it. I get those critiques, but at the same time, I didn't mind. I feel like whenever the writing works for you, it just does, and that's how I felt about this. So I'm really looking forward to any of the books the author will be coming out with, and this was an easy, well, let's say like a 4.75, but like a 5-star. So definitely the best book that I've read this month. I just loved it. Can't recommend it enough if you enjoy these kind of like slow character driven stories. Oh, the next one I actually did DNF. This is The Mountain in You, which is a self-help nonfiction book. They don't work for me. And this author, I have one more book by her already on my shelf, but I don't know. I feel like self-help, there are two categories. There are the ones that are actually helpful. That's gonna sound mean, but like, accept it. Just this is how I feel. I'm just being honest. And I feel like the other ones just sound like money grab. Like they're repeating the same things and they just don't do anything. And that's how I'm feeling about this one. She was making some weird statements, like saying that, oh, if you are not making money, it's not, see, I opened the right spot. You might have heard people you grew up with villainizing others who had money, so like you think of yourself like, I don't actually really want to get rich because really people are struggling to pay for grocery right now. I don't think that they're struggling to get their dream job because they're scared of becoming rich. Like, please. So I had issues with her, and I also felt like she was mixing actual concepts with like together just the wrong way, like saying how your gut feeling is definitely due to your actual gut lining. It was just like, yes, the gut is your second brain. That has been said scientifically speaking, but not the way you're actually using it. So this is going right here in my unhaul shelf. Gone. So next, so when it was time to go through my read it or unhaul it challenge, where I'm trying to read my physical TBR, the jar was nice to me. I feel like it could sense that I was going through it, so it gave me something very easy to go through, and this is the X Hex, which is a cozy fantasy romance, I guess. You're following a main character who was seeing this man when they were both young, like 1920, and they ended the relationship abruptly, so she decided to get drunk and curse him because she's a witch. And she lives in a small town, so you do get those vibes, which I personally am a big fan of. And then it's like 20 years later, he has to come back in town due to family business, magical business. And the fact that he's cursed ends up cursing the whole town, and you're seeing them deal with the consequences. So I thought in theory that sounded really cute. I did find that even though they're adults, they were acting like children. Like this read a little bit like a Y with some spicy scenes. So like it's very readable, which is what I needed at the time, but I did feel like they were acting, like I said, like children. Like, just tell someone. I feel like whenever you're reading YA books as an adult, you start thinking, can you just please talk to one adult, please? And that's how I felt about them. They're adults, and like, stop having spicy moments. You're supposed to actually, like, everyone is going cuckoo because the magic is corrupted, and you're just having sex. Maybe I was too involved in like solving the issue and not enough in the relationship, but it was fine for what it was. I enjoyed it at the time. I did like the cat situation. It was funny, but yeah, it was fine. It was fine. A lot of you mentioned that the rest of the series gets better. I don't know if I'm going to try it, but it was good. Like, I'm not getting rid of it, but it's not an all-time favorite. But I'm also a big fan of small town witches, so 3-star. I did finish a nonfiction. I'm getting back to it, and things are going okay. I finished Laziness Does Not Exist, which I think is a really interesting concept. You realize as you get older, I feel like that laziness is a very capitalistic concept. Like, why do we have to be productive 24/7? Why do we have to monetize our hobbies and side hustle? And like, why do we put so much pressure on ourselves? It's definitely not good for us. It's probably why everyone is getting sick. so many autoimmune diseases for women. Stress is not good. So this topic was something that I wanted to explore more. I did find it interesting. I feel like with a lot of books, like nonfiction books with titles that are really catchy, sometimes the topics and like the author tends to go on tangents that are not super related, but I overall really did enjoy this. You have some real life examples from the author and their friends, and you get actual examples of what actually helped them and the people around them. So it was overall enjoyable, but again, I didn't feel like it was super centered on the title. Maybe it's me that just gets focused on that because recently I put down a book because the title was super far from the actual book. Actually, I did finish it and I hated it. But like I got through that, so I was a little skeptical going into it. So I'm a little on the fence as to how much I should give it, like what rating I should give it. It's either a 3 or 4 star. I enjoyed it for what it was, but yeah, the title is a bit unrelated at times, but I did enjoy the content. So like if you have read this, let me know how you feel about it because the book is good. It's just I think I'm getting a little annoyed with books title not being appropriate, but it's super eye-catching. So like I get it. Anyway, not a bad nonfiction. I did finish an audiobook, finally. I listened to Murder Road by Simone St. James. This is my like 4th or 5th book by the author. I have enjoyed some of them, mainly The Sundown Motel, which was my 2nd book by her, and I feel like nothing has quite compared to it so far. And this one, as soon as I started it, this is where everyone told me, oh, it's actually not good. Which, like, I get it. I appreciate the feedback, but I had very low expectations and it was just okay. I don't think I would have finished it if it weren't for the audiobook, but a lot of you found it kind of cozy for a murder mystery. So you're following a main character who is on her honeymoon. You get that she has a past that she's been hiding. Same thing with her new, fresh husband. So as they are on their way to their honeymoon, they go on this road. They find this woman walking on the side who has been injured, so they bring her to the hospital. She ends up dying, and the police decides that they're the suspects, which I found kind of weird. So they get sucked into a story, and in order to not get accused, they try to solve the murder mystery because multiple people have been disappearing or dying on this specific road in this small town. So it was good for what it was, but again, it was just okay. So 3 star, definitely not my favorite by the author. Going back to the jar, picking easier books for me than I expected. I was a little nervous when I started this one. This is the Paper Menagerie and Other Stories. This is a short story collection, which I've kind of stopped reading the majority of them because it can be a little hit and miss. I find myself not getting emotionally invested whenever the books or the stories are really short. I did not have this issue with this one. So props to the author to actually convince me I will be enjoying some in the future. All like Asian centered, like either Asian characters or set in Asia because the author is Chinese. So some of them are following Chinese characters or Japanese ones. Some of them are following immigrants to the US. Actually, my favorite story, The Paper Menagerie. I don't know if it's my favorite story, but it's definitely the one that made me cry. Which again, a short story that makes me cry. Okay. In that one specifically, you're following a woman who emigrated to the US and she got married to a man who never really learned her language. And then they had a son, and the son is feeling kind of embarrassed by her and her culture. So he's kind of shunning her. So that book made me cry. It definitely, that story, I should say, made me cry. The only thing is I feel like some of the first ones are stronger than some of the later ones. There are some that are like 100 pages, which I found a bit slower, but this was definitely one of the best short story collections I have read. I think my problem is that I read them back to back because that's usually how I read my books. So it was a lot to go through, like so many stories, too many stories in a row, but I'm going to give this 4 star. I do recommend it if you are someone that enjoys short story collections. This was definitely one of the best ones I have read. Next, I finished one of my favorite books this month. I got so excited because I wanted to find one horror book for fall. I mean, Halloween, come on. I wanted one more, and I found it with this one. This is How to Sell a Haunted House by Grady Enricks. This is my 3rd book by the author, so I feel like maybe I was really used to his style at this point because I think this is one of his lowest rated book. I think it's like 3.6 on Goodreads, which like good read ratings, you know, sometimes there are averages that are way too high. The book is. And sometimes really good books have low ratings. To be fair, like I said, I'm used to style at this point, so maybe that's the reason I was really into it. I have read Horror Store, no, My Best Friend, Exorcism, which they're horror, but like almost funny horror. Like the author doesn't make fun of the horror genre, he just fully embraces it. And this was no different. So in this one, main female character lives far away from her family. You kind of get that there aren't good vibes between them, but her parents died tragically suddenly, and her brother calls her, so she comes there, and she goes into the house and notices that things are being weird. And she grew up with her mother just making a bunch of dolls and puppets, which, and you know where this is going. But like as soon as she gets there, she realizes that like the attic door is nailed shut, which right there I was like, oh, I'm already uncomfortable. And like dolls, definitely, like, oh my gosh. This definitely worked for me. I feel like some horror stuff, it just doesn't really affect you. This did. I don't know if it's because the sun has been going down earlier. I don't know, but I was definitely creeped out a few times in there. I feel like a lot of horror books also tend to rely heavily on gore, and this one definitely contained a bit more than the other ones. There are like two scenes. There are two scenes that are up there, but they didn't feel like pointless like I felt in other ones. Like I mentioned last month, I attempted to read a Stephen King book, and there were like 3 scenes of animal abuse, and I was like, this is too much for me. There aren't any in here. But this was creepy. It was creepy. And I think it's page 283. I was I was in shock. I was in shock. So yeah, I already didn't care for dolls. They definitely creeped me out, but now puppets are added to the list too. Luckily I don't have any in the house, but if you do, you will need to lock them in a different room before you read this because they will scare you after that. So this was great. I'm gonna give it 4.25. It was great. The last book I did finish before we get to the ones I'm currently reading was an audiobook, and it is an adult fantasy, cozy fantasy book. And this is The Spell Shop. A lot of you were telling me how much you loved it. I was really excited. And the physical book has like purple pages, which like, please, I want that. But then I listened to it and it was just okay. I feel like I'm really divided with cozy fantasy. I either absolutely love them, recommend them constantly, or I find them almost like a bit juvenile. Like I keep saying that they read like children's book for adults because I'm not emotionally invested, which is the biggest difference between if it works for me or it doesn't. And in this case, I wasn't really invested in the story, but I still enjoyed it enough to finish it. So the main character works in a library in the big city, and it contains magical books. And something happens, an uprising happens, and she leaves this, small, very small world that she built for herself there and goes back to this island where her family is from. And doing so to protect the books because the library is burning, she steals a bunch of books. And she has a friend with her, which is a plant, a spider plant. And they move away to the small island, go back to the house, her family's house there, and she starts selling jam. Which, like, all of this should be right up my alley. She's making friends, opening up her world. But like I said, unfortunately, I just wasn't super emotionally invested in the story. So it sounded nice on paper, and it will either work for you or not. I feel like cozy fantasy is like that. They tend to be hard to recommend because there's not much of a reasoning in terms of if you will connect to it or not. I believe my character would be considered on the spectrum, so I know some people might want to get more representation. So it was cute, but just cute. So 3-star. Now let's talk about the ones I am currently reading. During my last vlog, I mentioned how I started this one. This is Beneath the Keep. I did not go any further into it, so I'm at chapter 5. This is an adult fantasy, but it's the prequel of the Tearling series, which I really enjoyed that series. That's the reason I'm reading the prequel. I feel like it takes me a lot to want to read more from the same world. So I'll keep you updated. It's too early to have much of an opinion. And the nonfiction, I've mentioned it a few times because the bar is low for me. My expectations for myself are pretty low, but I wanted to continue reading a little bit of nonfiction. And one of the things that worked for me pour the French is coming out, pour lire plus, to read more, it's to have very low goals, including reading 5 pages a day. I do it most days, and that's how I got to like 50 pages into the book. But I find this topic really interesting. I've read a couple books on it. I will continue to do so. It's essentially about how historically, whenever people would find like figurines or just information about the past, it was through a lens, it was analyzed through a lens that is like white men, that those are the people that could do the research, that had the education, that were the ones that could publish books. And this is like a feminist reinvestigation on these discoveries. I have mentioned how there are some examples, like if they would find a body with tools or like swords, they were like, oh, automatically, this is a man. And now we're finding out, actually, not the case. So I think it's just overall a really interesting topic. In this one, they're also analyzing, for example, religion, because they were investigating, analyzing things through a lens that is, again, very patriarchal. They would find these figurines of female bodies and they would automatically think, oh, it's just a figurine for like fertility ritual, not acknowledging that no, it's because people were praying to the goddess, whatever version of it. And I think it's really interesting. So again, it's super early. I'm like a quarter into the book, but I am curious to finish this. Hopefully in November, 5 pages a day, I should be able to make it. So I haven't started another audiobook, but I wanted to give you some options because I'm not too sure what to read, honestly. I feel like so many of you have told me that, oh, the books that you are planning on reading are not super good. I need to like sit down and refigure what I want to read before the end of the year because I'm a little overwhelmed. I do have Daughter of Mine by Megan Miranda. I have read a ton of her books and they tend to be really just solid murder mystery small towns, which I find cozy. So I have that one. It's her newest release. I do have for a different challenge, The Color Purple, which I had heard great things. I have the audiobook and I've heard that it might make me cry. So I don't know, but it's going to work for that specific challenge. I'm actually really looking forward to sharing that one, but that's the one that I think has a high chance of working for me. I also had the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, but so many of you told me that it was terrible. So I don't know, I might still pick it up because some of you did say it was good, and I don't always agree with you. So this is like a Hallmark, I think a little spicy book, but it's just screams fall. Look at that. Look at it. I feel like I want to give a chance to a few more fall vibes before I get fully into the Christmas vibe. So, I mean, look at the little ghost, okay? Look at me. I'm still feeling the fall for a few more days. So as you can see, my October was a little so-so, but I did find 2 books that I particularly like. How to Sell a Haunted House, which I would recommend if you enjoy horror and a little silly, but still creepy. And then All the Colors of the Dark, if you like very character-driven, more character exploration than truly like murder mystery, or just mystery in general. It's a bit more historical fiction. If you enjoy stories of kidnapped girls, you might want to check that one out, because again, it was my best book for October. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thumbs up, subscribe. I will be putting more videos on the screen that I recommend you check out, and I will see you in an upcoming video very soon. Bye. Say bye to the people, Coquette. Say bye to the people. Don't bite me. She's so cute, but she's a menace.